Nikola Shainovich, to be guilty Dragoljub Ojdanic, to be guilty Bojša Pavković, to be guilty Vladimir Lazarevic, to be guilty Sretan Lukic, to be guilty of counts 1 to 5 of the indictment.
5 men responsible for mass murder in Europe 10 years ago, found guilty. Serbia's strongman Slobodan Milosevic died while on trial, but not before evidence of what he said in a war cabinet meeting: no corpse, no crime.
Please be seated.
With Milosevic dead, these men have been held responsible for the biggest crimes in Europe since the Second World War. On their watch, 3,000 people were murdered. Nikola Shainovich, Deputy Prime Minister, guilty of crimes against humanity, murder and persecution, as were General Nebojša Pavković and Chief of Police Sretan Lukic. They got 22 years each. General Drago Ojdanic and General Vladimir Lazarevic were guilty of aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. They got 15 years each. Milan Milutinovic, formerly President of Serbia, was found not guilty and freed immediately.
I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you.
I gave evidence against the 6 in October 2006, providing just a few more pieces in the jigsaw that, together, told the story of the biggest documented massacre of all. The burden of the prosecution case was that the men at the very top of Serbia ran a campaign of murder and persecution, forcing hundreds of thousands of ethnic Albanians to flee and massacring thousands. Now, of course, I didn't see any killing, but I was there soon after, and it was the evidence of what I saw with my own eyes that formed part of the prosecution case. Just 8 hours after NATO bombs fell on Belgrade, the killers arrived in Kosovo. Serb special forces, intent on the ethnic cleansing of 800,000 Albanian Kosovars. The 5, 1 politician, 3 generals, and the chief of police, masterminded the operation. June the 12th, 1999, on the day NATO entered Kosovo, I did too, and a few days later arrived in Little Krusha, in the far southwestern corner of Kosovo, a few miles from the border with Albania. I was looking for a hay barn where, survivors had told me, more than 100 men and boys had been machine-gunned.
Close to your arrival in Kruševo, you also tried to find the Batusha hay barn or cowshed, yes, in which the killing had allegedly taken place.
Yes.
Right.
It was unrecognizable.
Where the hay barn had stood, there were just 2 holes in the ground. The Serbs had dynamited the evidence of massacre, but they didn't kill everyone.
There is one particular image which sticks in my mind, which made me understand what took place. And, well, it's, in fact, some of the survival testimony. The man with burnt hands, Mehmet Krasniqi.
Policia sërbë të një ndërtesë, sikur kjo. Kur në pushkatuan për nga 2 drejtare e nga dera që i pushkatuan të tërë ata burra, edhe unë e shpëtova nga ajo që hasen nga të 10 minute zjarë mitralezi të rënd, ata edhe futen zjarin nga kashta edhe trangu i misrit. Edhe unë isha kështu, duke ndajtur pranë murit. Kur filloi zjarri nga automatiku, unë rash në tokë. Kështu. U futën zjarrin dhe ratymi poshtë, se kisha të vdekurin për mi kokë, e tjetrin e kisha mbrapa shpinës, dhe unë i dhash, zot qohëm shtu në këmbë dhe i futa duart në zjarë. Edhe dola nga drejtare, këtu anash, më mirë të vdes nga plumi, se të vdes nga zjarri.
Of the dead, the oldest was 72, the youngest 13. One man was paralyzed and carried on another's back. One 15-year-old was mentally handicapped. The This is an old wedding party video. Watching her sons who died in her barn is Granny Batusha. She knew the men who took part in the massacre. Did they know them? Did they know that, if not their names, did they know their faces?
Oh, Dimitri, ska vi kusi? Is vest military, automatica. Oh, Dimitria, Tia.
Raben.
Ik kreeg uit meneer
Rada i
Rada.
Dušanit, Dimitrija, a është
Katolik, kusi.
And the next step in your investigation in this matter was that you started searching in some of the abandoned Serbian houses in the village, did you?
Yes.
I found an army ID booklet belonging to one of the prime suspects, Sava Nikolic, a videotape of Granny Batusha's Serb neighbour, Dimitri, and a Serb guard route of a little Krusha for the days following the massacre when the cover-up took place. Bone fragments from 19 of the dead have been identified. 80 bodies are still missing. The evidence from Little Krusha helped connect the killers on the ground with the men at the top. So justice of a kind for the victims. But is there any chance of reconciliation between the two communities?
They don't like the verdict. They see this as further evidence of the Hague Tribunal, as they see it, being anti-Serb. One politician has even totaled up the number of years Serbs have been sentenced to in The Hague, 920. Both sides still, although the guns are silent, look at each other with daggers drawn. They view the Hague Tribunal as effectively another front in their political struggle against each other. They keep score on decisions of the Hague Tribunal, totting up who's been found guilty on each side.
After the verdict, I spoke to Mehmet, the man with the burnt hands.
As far as our village is concerned, there is no way that Albanians and Serbs can live together again. That's because mothers here have told their children what became of their fathers and cousins. The children that were 2 years old then are 12 now and just cannot live with their Serb neighbours anymore.
Some call it victor's justice. Well, maybe. But for me, what happened in Little Krusha 10 years ago on that spring day has never been anything other than a war crime. The Serb authorities planned it, executed it, and then they did their very best to remove the evidence of their killing. Today's convictions and the sentences, totaling 96 years, are a message that they didn't, and that in today's modern Europe, you can't get away with mass murder.
John Sweeney reporting there. Now, imagine a bank which, unlike the big names in London or New York, actually